they were to consume the thing, it was completely edible, like edible maggots.
Number 10, the steam room, Saw 6.
You gotta get through this maze as fast as you can! Go, move now! Go now!
Whereas many Saw sets are dark, grimy dungeons, the steam room was one of the most elaborate they've ever created.
We have 2 layers and a catwalk on top, a catwalk on bottom, a tunnel and different obstacles and hot steam and hot boilers.
Full of crisscrossing pipes spread across 2 levels, this tricky set was the location of a fast-paced action sequence between 2 survivors. The hardest part was getting the look of the steam just right, since obviously you can't blast hot steam, which is about 212 degrees Fahrenheit, at people, even actors.
For the stove elements, we were fortunate enough to find a new product that's a flexible neon, and we were able to bend it into the shape of the stove elements, and it gave off the correct color.
Some steam did still make it onto the set for atmospheric effect, but for the rest, they used a smoke machine and increased the velocity of the smoke to make it look like it was pressurized.
Do it again, it worked, it worked! Do it again, it worked, it worked, it worked! Okay!
Number 9, the shotgun trap, Jigsaw.
Use your key to freedom.
This trap proved that simplicity is best, having only one ingredient, a shotgun. It's got a key inside one of the shells, and they need to take it out in order to free themselves. But rather than work together, one survivor, Anna, takes matters into her own hands and tries to shoot Ryan. The shotgun, however, backfires and kills her.
Which also, at the same time, ends up destroying the keys.
How was this accomplished without actually rigging a shotgun to backfire? It's easy enough. They used 2 props, one with a hole blown in it and one without. And the key props within were designed to look like they'd been destroyed in the blast.
Backwards. He said we better backwards!
Number 8, the cube trap, Saw 5.
Initial ideas for the cube trap came from the writers Patrick and Marcus. They had this great idea of capturing someone's head in a box and then having them try to escape.
Sometimes actors go through hell to bring us a great scene. And that is exactly what happened when Scott Patterson, who played Strom, had to film the water box trap.
It's one thing to hold your breath for more than 30 seconds, and sometimes he held his breath for almost a minute. But then to actually emote and to act and hit all the right cues, I was blown away.
There were very few special effects needed for this one. All they had to do was make sure the box could hold water, but also that it could be emptied at a moment's notice when Patterson was no longer able to hold his breath.
I know they ran through various scenarios of what to fill that box with, but ultimately it came down to the fear of drowning.
While they always have plenty of medics on set for Saw, there was still a very real element of danger to Patterson. And because it was all close-up shots, there was no chance of getting a stunt double.
Hey!
Number 7, the Coffin Trap, Saw 5.
I got you, you mother.
Rather than drowning, Strom finally met his demise in this classic booby trap, a crushing room, where the walls slowly closed in and killed him.
This is actually unique because it's a crushing room, but it's the first time in history that anyone will actually get crushed in the crushing room. Usually you have someone stick a pipe between the walls or they escape out the door at the last minute. But I think that this is the first time on film that someone's actually going to get crushed.
To accomplish this, they built an incredibly complex set. It had to be suspended a few feet off the ground so that Hoffman's glass box could sink beneath the floor, and the walls needed to actually move.
Those walls, the way we rigged them, you couldn't push them. They would crush you. They have that much force, that much pressure.
The special effects supervisor, Jeff Scotchko, said that it was one of the most dangerous traps they ever built. To create the moment where Strom's arm gets snapped, they made a fake arm that could be broken as many times as necessary.
I didn't know the ending, and they started doing a cast of my arms, and I said, well, you know, what are you doing a cast of my arms for? And he goes, oh, they didn't tell you? They're killing you off.
Number 6, the ice block trap, Saw 4.
Hey, asshole. You jump off that block, you electrocute him. If that ice had melted more, he'd be fried.
How did they make all those blocks of ice look so convincing? Well, all the ice in this trap was actually real, which made it an incredibly difficult shoot for continuity. You can't have ice blocks thawing and freezing over and over again in one scene after all. Even the blocks used to decapitate Eric's head were real, though his head certainly wasn't.
Practically, just figuring it all out was a nightmare. The blocks of ice alone were 300 pounds. Huge challenge for the special effects team just to handle the ice.
They used a bag of fake blood suspended right where his head would be to get the final shot of the blocks crushing it. And to get the remains seen by Hoffman later on, a realistic cast of Donnie Wahlberg's face was created.
Better hope he doesn't come through that door.
Who's coming through the door?
Number 5. The Angel Trap. Saw 3.
The Angel Trap is one of the more elegant and beautiful traps, I think, in the Saw universe. While it's gruesome and while the aftermath is horrific, it's beautiful to look at.
Here, our detective Carrie has to either put her hand in a jar of acid to retrieve a key to unlock her harness, or have her ribs and chest torn apart by this metal contraption.
Right before the cylinder fires, the magnets will let go so that these are just kind of dangling, and then like the split second later, the cylinder will fire and then these wings will spread out like that and pull the ribs apart.
More complex than the mechanisms, however, were the prosthetics Dina Meyer had to wear. She had 3 separate layers of prosthesis attached to her body that could be torn apart by the machine on camera, including replicas of her skin, muscles, internal organs, and of course, lots of blood. The result is certainly convincing and especially gruesome. It is as violent as it is clever.
I think when you're watching the footage of it, you're really captivated by it. It's pretty in the same way that it's horrific.
Number 4. The Needle Pit Trap. Saw 2.
It will be like finding a needle in a haystack.
Nobody likes getting shots, and this fear was taken to its extreme in this relatively simple concept. But while the idea was easy enough, the execution was particularly challenging.
It's one thing for me to write it and say, oh, we're going to put a bunch of needles and it'll be easy and you'll jump in it.
Not that many people had processed it far enough to really understand what was going to be involved here.
During pre-production, the crew severely underestimated how many needles they would need to create a pit. Whereas they originally thought they would only need 20,000 needles, they actually needed 120,000. And it took 4 people 4 days to replace all the metal tips with fake ones.
The initial concept where she'd be neck deep in needles wasn't going to work because a person would not actually sink in this needle pit.
And to get the footage of Amanda pulling out the needles later on, a replica of Shawnee Smith's arm was made and stabbed with real syringes.
You hire the best special effects guy you can and you say, I want to see 14 needles sticking out of Shawnee Smith's body, and they go away and do whatever like voodoo they do, and they come back and they show it to me. And I go, oh wow, that's really cool.
Number 3. The Hair Trap. Saw 4.
The hair trap developed from stories and urban myths of people having their scalp ripped off in industrial accidents and the pain that would cause.
This infamous trap saw another of Jigsaw's victims have their hair slowly pulled off by a heavy gear system, ripping off not only the hair, but also scalping them. From a technical aspect, it was actually very difficult to accomplish, however.
We had a lot of trouble with it at first because making it look real was very difficult because we couldn't really pull on the scalp very hard, or else it would just separate and the whole gag would be over in about 2 seconds.
Serene Boylan had an entire fake forehead, fake scalp, and wig attached owing to her having much shorter hair in real life. They also had to use a body double who had longer natural hair for some shots where her face wasn't visible to make it look more convincing. Ultimately, it was Boylan's performance that made the scene so compelling. She definitely gave it her all. Number 2. The Pig Vat. Saw 3.
What is that?
One of the grossest traps to ever grace the big screen, the pig vat entailed pig carcasses moving through a meat grinder, creating a gruesome gray pulp used to drown somebody trapped below.
Our special effects team had a heck of a time mixing up enough blood and guts and pig entrails to really make it look effective.
The pigs and the pulp aren't one and the same, however. They only had 4 rotten pig props to use, which had to be repeatedly moved to give the illusion that there were many more on the conveyor belt.
The construction of the pigs was incredible, but just the amount of abuse that they were taking during shooting was unbelievable. And they were designed to do that, but we really put them through the test.
The pulp was a mixture created by the filmmakers and dumped on the actor, but the maggots seen on the pig carcasses were 100% real. They were sterile and shipped in from a laboratory to make sure they were safe.
So that if someone by some strange chance had one get in their mouth or anywhere else and they were to consume the thing, it was completely edible, like edible maggots.
These behind-the-scenes secrets of scary movie moments make me feel better when I find out how they're done, because then I can focus on that instead of getting freaked out. Well, anyway, there's one saw trap that is iconic to the series as well as terrifying, so let's look through some honorable mentions and then we'll find out how it was filmed. A stuntman was actually set on fire inside a specially designed furnace. Saw 2.
I was quite surprised to see our stuntman literally crawl up to his neck into the flames and bat flames off of his leg, which was on fire. It was completely on fire, with a bare hand, covered in fire gel, of course.
The box had to hide the blade so Addison would realistically reach in. Saw 2.
Our prop builders ingeniously came up with this idea of a cuff that simply lifts up, pushing the blades back and allowing us to get out of the trap and dropping the blades down again.
A prosthetic body of the actor was made so they could rip him apart. Saw 4.
3, 2, 1. That's excellent.
The face stitches are fake. The winch pulling the chain is real. Saw 4.
There's a big issue between making it look dangerous and it actually being dangerous, and sometimes it's a fine line. As long as I've got my finger on the off button, we should be pretty safe.
Both actors were cutting into prosthetics, not themselves, obviously. Saw 6.
For our Eddie character with a large padded stomach, it was all foam and plastic. Simone, we had to build a prosthetic arm because she chops her arm off. We built a prosthetic that she could actually cut into, so it's not just a blood rig on a knife.
Number 1. The Venus Flytrap. Saw 2. The first movie's reverse bear trap was iconic, but since Amanda escaped, we never got to see it in action. Luckily, the sequel was there to deliver by revamping the original head trap into the Venus Flytrap, an iron face mask full of rusty nails that would clamp closed in a matter of minutes.
We had to wait to cast the head because we didn't want to start building a prop that complicated without the actor's dimensions. Otherwise, it, could slice off an ear.
The first thing needed to create this trap was a face cast of the actor Noam Jenkins' head, to make sure it fit nice and snug when it was closed, and the spikes themselves were simply made of rubber. This is so they can get the shot of it snapping shut without having to remove the spikes or risk injuring Jenkins.
They wanted a mask that was pretty form-fitting, so his head had to be in a fairly locked-off position when the thing closed. It was made so that it fit tight on him.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.